Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DragonCon Urban Fantasy Track, part of Dragtool 2020. We are here tonight to talk about Warrior Nun, which I don't know if my panelists have heard the news, but just got awarded with a season 2 this very day. So this is an auspicious day for us to be recording this panel. And I think we can all agree that based upon how it ended, we are darn glad that it got a season 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is have each one of my wonderful panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with our discussion. And Diana, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Perry, also known as Diana, and also known as DJ if you know me on Facebook. I'm an author and I write urban fantasy, mostly YA, and I live in Rhode Island. So, but don't ask me for calamari. No tentacles today.
Father Bryan.
Hi, welcome. I'm so glad to be here, and thanks for the welcome, Carol. My name is Father Bryan Small. I'm an actual Catholic priest. I don't know if I could take on the title warrior priest. The Jesuits get really, really touchy. They think they own that, and so that being as it may. So anyways, I'm a priest here in Atlanta, only about 10, 15 minutes from the West End right now. Not that anyone else is there, but been doing panels with DragonCon for about over 10 years now, and always happy to be here.
Thank you. Joy.
Hi, I'm Joy Hatcher. I am not a nun, but I play one in cosplay. I am a social studies educator. I live in Atlanta. I volunteer for the Star Wars track, but my fandom is a little bit of everywhere, and I am loving the Warrior Nun, obviously.
Yes, thank you. Kevin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Bachelder. I'm the assistant track director here for the Urban Fantasy Track. I am probably familiar to many of you as being a longtime panelist at DragonCon and also a podcaster at Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV, where we cover all of the genre TV shows and also do some specific podcasts for Winona Earp and Buffy.
Yay. More of our good shows on the track. And Lindy.
Hey everybody, I'm Lindy Keelan. I am a retired podcaster. I used to be the co-host of the Scapecast with my dear friend Kevin over here. And now I am a fan of a lot of different shows, and I'm always happy when Carol invites me to come and express my opinion about something.
And I'm always happy when you take me up on it, when you're able to be here. There are a lot of interesting kind of questions and conundrums, I think, with this show. And I tried to think of where's a good place to start. And I guess without it getting super specific, I thought, well, why don't we start with where do we think or where do you think that the turning point for Ava was, where she decided that rather than walking away, that she was going to accept the halo and the responsibilities that came with it. Can you look back at a particular moment and say, I believe this was when that happened? And Diana, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I think when she went in the alley and the man was walking behind the woman, but it turned out that the woman had friends back there and they mugged the guy. I really think that was sort of the beginning of that. She, of course, when she went with Mary into the town, that small town, that was a big tipping point. But I really think the seeds of, I have a responsibility because I can see these smoke demons. I think that started when she followed that man, thinking he was going to assault the woman in the alley. I think she wouldn't have followed him if she didn't think she should at least try to do something about the problem.
Okay. Father Bryan, what about you?
No, I think with a lot of things, it's a lifelong process. With any vocation, I should say. People always ask, when did you decide you want to be a priest? And I go, when I woke up this morning. So it's, I don't know if it's any one moment, but even to the last episode, I mean, there's always that little bit of ambivalence. really until the end. And again, I started watching it. I haven't had a chance to, I watched it when it first aired, so I'm not completely refreshed with the details. Oops, sorry.
Oh, nice.
So, but again,
nice
I don't know if there's a particular moment I could pick out.
Okay, Joy.
I don't think she's made that decision yet. I mean, she's doing things that she wants to do right now, but I don't know that she's necessarily committed herself. I mean, sure, there are things that she's done throughout the season, like the alley with the smoke demon, like when her sort of boyfriend was in the warehouse with Mary and the demon showed up. But I think that was also really just kind of part of what a good person would do in general. I don't know that she's actually committed to this role yet. I think that she is stuck in a position right now where she feels like she has to, but I don't think that I don't think she's committed yet.
Okay. Lindy.
I somewhat agree with both Joy and Diana that in some ways it doesn't seem like she has made a commitment, but to me, I really thought that being in that town and seeing how when she was in the town with Mary and seeing how the town was affected by what happened to them and how it brought them close together and how much they loved Mary and then accepted Ava because she was part of that group now, I think that is when Ava came to the realization that there was a higher purpose to her life and that she needed to pay more attention to that. But as being completely committed, well, I don't know, in the cave when she was willing to die to give up the halo to whatever that thing is.
Yeah, we're going to talk about him.
Yeah, I think that that might have been the point where she made the commitment. But again, once she realized that that sacrifice was not for good, she changed her mind about it.
But that was a sacrifice for good. I would argue that that's not a commitment to being the warrior nun. That is, in fact, the opposite. Here, you take it.
Yeah, let me get rid of this thing after all.
Yeah,
Okay.
but she realized that would have killed her, so she was willing to make that sacrifice for the greater good, which is something that she might not have been willing to do up until then.
Kevin.
Yeah, I think all of these answers are great examples of the fact that we don't know. I don't think we've really seen it. Like Joy said, it's been different stages of kind of like, okay, fine, I'll do this. I'll take one little step here. Each of those things, from the alleyway to the town with Mary to going in to, and then having a discussion there with Adriel and potentially giving it up because she just wanted it to go away. As we said, maybe she was willing to do an act of good, but was she committed to anything yet? I think I agree very much with Joy that I think that's going to be season 2, episode 1 that we're going to find out.
Right, although one could argue that going through, what was it, 20 feet of wall, that might be a bit of a commitment. So, and that actually kind of leads into another good question. And the reason I'm bringing this up is it was brought up in the show itself, but also before the show started, and I had posted a link to one of the previews, and I had posted it on the Urban Fantasy Track Facebook page, and there was a woman who brought it up and brought up the issue that she said, that they had completely, or it was evident from just looking at the trailer that she was not given a choice, that this was not her choice at all, that this thing was basically implanted in her to save it from being captured. So therefore, she was having this put upon her, and she even addresses that herself and talks about the fact that she did not ask for it. And that is, to me, is something that I brought it up at the time when this person made the post, and I told Kevin next year we're going to do a panel about the topic. About it's actually kind of an urban fantasy trope where you have this hero or heroine who have this thrust upon them that they don't want. A lot of times it's just whatever their duty is or their mission. But in this case, it was something actually physically in her that she had no choice over. And so, I guess it makes sense that it takes a while for her to come around, to want to get on board with something that was forced upon her, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because, it pretty much came out of nowhere. I mean, anybody have any thoughts on that particular idea?
Well, what is that old saying?
Lack of choice.
What is that old saying? Sometimes you choose greatness, and sometimes it's literally thrust inside the back of your corpse. I think that's
Right.
I think that's the quote.
Yeah, something like that. You are correct. So yeah, but I mean, there is a lot to that. I think in terms of just for and not just for the character, but for the position of being the warrior nun. At least the other people who had been chosen were ones that were more or less expecting it. They're expecting it could be a possibility. But
I think,
go
if
ahead.
I might, Carol, the thing that I think makes this one a little more interesting, certainly, and as you said, we've seen it in many, many shows, is that she was dead. Okay, I mean,
Right.
this was a new lease on life, period. So
And-
I think that brings up a lot of discussion.
And not just the resuscitation, but she got legs out of the deal.
Yeah,
Right.
paraplegic and
Exactly.
all.
Not a
Yeah,
one-way street. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I was
Now
certainly.
she had legs. They just didn't work.
Yeah,
They
didn't
didn't
work.
work, right?
But I mean, and I
Right.
think that's part of what, to me, I know many folks will often talk about Netflix shows, how slow they are in the beginning, how much time they take to get to things. And this one certainly had a good part of that. But I think to me, it made more sense in this show because watching her just find some friends, run on the
Mhm.
beach, find a boyfriend, so forth, was that chance for her, something she hadn't had. So as a character, I think it was important to see that. And I think it also made more sense as she wasn't committing because there were all these things that, she never had a chance to. We certainly, Buffy, Winona Earp, like you said, other shows where they have something that's thrust upon them. But in her case, not only physically into her, but also you were dead. Okay. So to a certain
Right.
degree, anything you got is now a bonus. So
Well, Mary comes out and says exactly that to her more than once. But I feel like that is a clear indication that Ava has always been a fighter. She's always rebelled. She's always pushed back. We see her do this in the orphanage when she's getting cared for. She pushes back. She sasses. She talks back. She befriends the child in the bed next to her, despite the fact that there was someone there before him who died in the night at some point. And she comes back and she saves him when she realizes what really happened to her. So I feel like Ava, when she gets the halo to begin with, and she's aerial warrior nun, because in a way it's like that. She gets legs.
Right.
She has to figure out how to use them. Do they work exactly? What do I do? I'm wearing a hospital gown. I have to put clothes on. Oh, I'm gonna just steal this from this soccer store. She is just resourceful. She is fighting. She's trying to continue. She's trying to keep going. There's sort of this quality about her that I think makes her likable to the audience, but maybe not likable to the other characters a lot of times. She's always questioning everything, pushing back. Yeah. I mean, to the point where she has the audacity to question this being in this tomb, who the halo came from in the first place. She has the audacity, she has the chutzpah to do that. And it's just, I mean, who else would do that? Lilith would.
Any teenager. Lots of teenagers would do that.
Yeah, but Lilith certainly wouldn't have done it. She didn't question anybody until after she came back. from where she'd been.
Yeah, we will definitely be talking about
Yeah.
that too. Some theories on that. Well, and something else that I found very intriguing was the whole idea of the divinium and how, you know, Ava came up with the idea, okay, divinium can kill a halo bearer, and that's really the only thing that can. But then what happens, does it work the other way around? And so she did that experiment and discovered that, oh, it does work that way. But then we also have the situation where it's keeping Michael alive. So does anybody have any theories on what divinium might be? And Father Bryan, we'll start with you.
So one of my ambivalence things with the show is the constant bait and switch on not just in terms of who the antagonist is, you know, well, this is the bad guy, no, this is the bad guy, no, that's the bad guy. It just
Good point,
goes
yeah.
on and on and on. But then even at the story itself, you know, the mythology is completely, I assume we're doing spoilers. The mythology is
yes.
deconstructed at the end. So it's just, I suspect season 2 is going to be one more bait and switch after another. So any theory we have is just kind of spinning wheels. And that's one of the things, again, I'm sort of ambivalent that it does that. Am I the only one, or?
I hadn't really thought about it.
Yeah, I always have an issue when they make up some weird name for some magical thing that has some properties. There's other examples besides this one. I think that one of the things I did like about her was, first of all, because she was young and completely inexperienced, is that she was willing to question what was happening. She missed out on a lot of the indoctrination that, although I completely respect the other characters who are nuns for who they are, and they were developed wonderfully in this show, she doesn't have the spiritual background. In fact, the people who were the spiritual leaders in her life were her torturers, honestly. And so she rejected all of that and came from the questioning part of all this, like, what is this? And that's why I think she went originally to that high-tech company to say, I want you to science me, because
Right.
I want, you know, I need to understand what's going on with this. So it's hard to, yeah, I mean, I'm always, you know, you always have to suspend disbelief when you're watching sci-fi and stuff, but so many things go back how you can relate to them in real life. And to me, when they make up these crazy names for stuff, it kind of takes me out of it.
Well, I don't know. In the Star Wars universe, we are really used to things like midichlorians and kyber crystals, and you know, this is old news for us.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe it wasn't, I feel like divinium specifically is not just one of those, oh, it's made up. I think it's a hint. And
Okay.
I know that Father Bryan was talking about like the multiple twists where it's like the old fashioned telephone cords where it's just the spiral of twists. I was sitting there watching this show with my husband and we were just like, there's something off about this. The divinium, it kills halo bearers, but it's called divinium.
Right.
What is up with that? That's a clue to something. And we thought, hey, maybe the demons that look like demons aren't exactly the demons here, or why are there two types of demons and one can get in and stay here and the other one can't? It has a hard time. What's up with that? So I think divinium may have been a clue, and then you have to think who named it. The church and the order named the divinium. So they might have been trying to drop hints. It's clear that some of the warrior nuns had their doubts about things as they were told to them by the higher authorities in the church. So maybe that was a clue that things weren't what they seemed. It certainly made me think there's something hinky about this while I was watching the earlier episodes in the season.
and then to learn that, what's intriguing is that it's connected to Michael too. You got any thoughts on that? On what it might be?
I think at the end of the season, I thought, okay, Adriel's really the demon, and the smoke demons are on his side, and there probably are actually demons, and those are infernal. He stole the halo, and he wants it back, of course, from the person who stole it from him. Who's angrier about being stolen from than someone whose gains are ill-gotten anyway? And it's possible that the Tarasques aren't demons at all. Biblically speaking, if you look in the Old Testament, angels are scary. Does Adriel look scary? He doesn't look scary. He looks like a guy. He looks like a regular dude who just takes a lot of damage and doesn't get killed. I mean, that's also terrifying, but in a much more subtle way. He's also tempting these people with his power. Oh, I can bring your champion back. I've got this way to do it that also benefits me, because now these big Tarasques aren't coming through and trying to murder me. So they left it ambiguous at the end, but I wouldn't be surprised if in season 2 we didn't find out. Michael maybe comes back or sends a message or is able to communicate with Mom somehow, or Ava even. He seems to have a connection with her. And what if that leads to something like another one of those twists in the telephone cord?
That's all we need, yeah. More twists in the cord. Kevin, what about you? You got any thoughts about Divinium and what it might be?
Well, I think as everybody was kind of saying, it's going to be, our plot item with little hints dropped about it potentially, as we're hearing in terms of the naming. Makes a lot of sense. It's rather obvious from the style of the storytelling of how season 1 played out that they very much want to play what I look at as the kind of the spinning wheel of, right, who's the bad one, who's the bad one, who's the good one. Depending upon what you're looking at in any given episode, it's look here, but actually the best part's going on over there. So it makes the show more rewatchable, because now you want to see if you caught some of the clues for some of these things.
Right,
and
beginning,
and as we're describing some of the, I don't know if we got B plots or subplots, the child, the Divinium, the portal, creating a portal to what she thinks might be heaven, all of these bits, we now start wondering where they fit into the bigger part of this. So I mean, do shows sometimes throw way too many, like Father Bryan was saying, was there too much of that? Sometimes a good twist is nice, but do I need 5 of them? And that's what they seem to be doing. So a lot of these
laborious.
So I mean, a lot of these, I'm very much, at least for me in the enjoyment, I let it play out, thought it was a lot of fun, and now, very much now they have got that season 2, I'm like, okay, now you did your tease, you got me in, I want some serious answers and some detail on those items. That's where I think is going to define the quality of the show to me in season 2 is, can we get answers to these things and what they mean to build on? Or are you going to keep playing this roulette thing of, I don't know what's happening next? So, long answer to that is, I haven't thought too much about it, because it's like, okay, that's another one of those items on the list of, we don't know enough yet.
Yeah, and it's so odd, because you have this connection with this, whatever is on the other side in that portal, because we know Michael went through it, and he's somehow connected not just to Ava, but also to Adriel, or whoever that guy really is that was in the tomb. So I mean, they have a lot of splaining to do when they come back. That's for sure.
And how did everybody feel? There's that kind of one twist where you get the sense that for a moment that Adriel is just like some thief con artist who just kind of stumbles into it, and they kind of played that for a little while. Again, it's just sort of like one thing after another. I mean, do you think that would have been a satisfactory resolution?
Yeah, no, that wouldn't have been. Yeah, it wouldn't have been quite the same, I don't think, as what we did get. And I thought that that his role was played very well, in terms of when she first comes upon him, it almost seems as though he's what he's trying to present himself as, you know, the innocent guy who's been stuck in this tomb for 1,000 years. But then it wasn't too long into their interaction that I was like, yeah, there's something off with this guy. And then, you know, we find out that there was something off with actually a lot of people that we didn't expect. But he was definitely an interesting character. And he had this quote, which I have in the notebook. You guys know about the notebook.
Handy dandy notebook.
Yeah, my notebook. When he talks about faith, these people, faith is based upon that which cannot be proven. This is what he's saying to Ava.
Mhm.
For without faith, there is no manipulation. Without manipulation, there is no fear. Without fear, there is no power. And, you know, of course, by the time he's saying all that, you're thinking, yeah, you're like, you know, this guy is not who he was trying to be, or who he wanted us. What's that?
That whole thing that he said made absolutely no sense. Okay, so I am not a Christian. I was not raised in that faith. But from the face of it, to me, I agree with her. If the Catholic Church had an actual angel, it would seem that would give them all the things that he's talking about. Would give them the power, the automatic faith, you know, the fear, because here is an angel, and if you don't behave yourself, you're going to get it. All those things. So what he said made no sense whatsoever. And I think he was really playing on her naivete. Because how little experience that she had in the world. And when you know, as it went on, what I thought about him, because we don't know who he really is like the more like Native American kind of creature called the trickster, who's represented by the crow. He seems more of that ilk. He may not be Satan. He may not, and he may be from heaven at some point, but he seems like a trickster more than anything, that he's just there to play and make everybody miserable.
And in the Jewish Testament, that's how the devil was often depicted. Like in Job, I mean, he and God are just playing cards one night, basically, with cigars.
Yeah.
And Daniel, you know, same thing, like almost like Loki. It's not until after the Babylonian exile that is sort of reworked and revisited to a more malevolent visage.
Yeah. And I think that it could very well be that he is, you know, originally, you know, the devil, Satan, was an angel who, you know, just kind of pissed off God. And so it could be this is also somebody who is a defiant person, like Ava is with the rest of the nuns. Is that being the rebel, the defiant?
But I think it's interesting too, though, Lindy, that and I don't want to go too far down the
oh, let's go, Kevin.
The rabbit hole of the religion side of it. No, for the sake of the story, but
I got stuff I need to say.
And I know Father Bryan will fill in some information, but I mean, what he said there, though, and that was to me, it was very telling, and it was one of those, I got to rewind that and so forth. And you can take it that way. You can take it as someone trying to manipulate her. Or you can also look at it, too, from the idea of if there is, when it comes to religion or belief in religion, if you actually do get proof of either an angel or a devil, then that to almost everyone is going to mean the reality of one existing means the other one does. And that's going to upset apple carts all around for people when they're looking at what's going on. You can take it as real good that we had an angel, but that also means there are really devils in that world too. So does the church really, or at least this depicted type church that wants to withhold information, want to have that information out? No, I could see them actually trying to withhold that to their own benefit for that reason of being able to manipulate people. But related to that, where I'm really going on this, and I'm curious to hear the panelists, and sorry, Carol, kind of jumping in.
No, go. It was a starting point. Go ahead.
All of this stuff that we've been seeing so far, the order, the OCS and everything, it's all, no one knows about it. It's all totally under, cover and so forth. we just had a giant explosion when we brought in a new pope. We just saw a bunch of nuns basically killing and shooting arrows into the back of a head of someone. You can't tell me there isn't someone there with a cell phone camera. This isn't going to go viral. No, seriously, this isn't going to go viral. And what will that mean to the order?
Yeah, QAnon would just explode.
So no, I'm wondering, are they going to address that? Where, as we know, in most of our urban fantasy shows, everything's below the surface. No one knows any of this is happening. How could you possibly not have something come out?
I mean, come on. The obvious answer is that the halo disrupts all video.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I mean, come on. Yeah.
But that it hasn't. They haven't relied on that to get through places. You can tell that Beatrice, at least, and Mary also, they're very wary of cameras. They have protocols to knock them out.
Right, as soon as they get
Trained
somewhere.
to time themselves getting past
Yes, but
the
those
camera.
are warrior nuns, not the warrior nun with the halo. And we don't know that this is some new power that Shannon didn't know how to access because she wasn't a teenager who's tech savvy.
I don't know how tech savvy Ava could have been though, locked up in that orphanage. I mean,
She
As
didn't
a
have a
quadriplegic,
phone.
yeah.
she didn't have a phone.
No,
Yeah,
I'm just very curious though, from a story point of view, are they going to deal with that? Because I mean, that to me, it changes everything if this becomes.
Yeah, thousands of people in the courtyard there, whatever they call that,
Right.
where people are waiting to find out who the new pope's going to be, and all of a sudden,
Yeah,
and
so
people have their phones up.
I'm just wondering. I mean, I just think it could be an interesting storyline that might totally change the idea of the OCS. I don't know. Well,
One of the notes that I had written down in my notebook, I sometimes, aside from just things that are happening, I'll make just these observations that I have at a given point. And one of the things that I wrote about was when Mary was walking around, it was later in the season, it was when I think she was looking for Ava, but she's walking around this town and she's got this, this big, huge sword on her back. And she's just walking through downtown and she's going up to all these various and sundry people asking them, have you seen so-and-so? Have you seen this person? And it's just like, nobody mentions that she's carrying, that nobody bats an eyelid. But anyway, I just thought that was kind of amusing. So it's kind of along the same lines.
Well, they're in Spain. It's just different sensibilities about swords.
She
Okay,
she also has a very American accent in Spain, and they're probably like, oh, these American tourists, and they're wearing weapons. I mean, of course
Right.
she's armed to the teeth. She's American.
This is listed as an American show, but it's really not. I mean, it's a very international in its disposition. So did they film like English and then the same actors do it again in Spanish? Because that's the sense that I got.
I don't think so.
I haven't read anything about that. No, I know they shot in Spain. I do know that the actress who plays Ava can speak 5 languages. So maybe.
So she could have, but they didn't. I don't
Everybody
think.
that was bilingual. So I just curious.
Right.
Well,
Now, I
they did
know
have, they did have some stuff that was in Italian, and they had it translated. I don't think it was like that, but shows that are on Netflix, they're international anyway, and there's all kinds of stuff happening. I didn't read the end credits because usually at the end credits they will show all the different languages and who the actors were for each of the voices or whatever.
Well, it struck me, one of the things that I jotted down for us to address was that it seems to me as though the show is also somewhat about fate versus free will. Because Ava says, I mean, she says it a few different times, she wants to be the last warrior nun. She wants this to stop. That's why they talk about wanting to get rid of Adriel's bones and everything. And they, the fact that she doesn't think she doesn't want young women like her to keep on dying for somebody else to, keep taking up the cause. That if she thought that she could take care of the problem, she was going to do it. But they talk a lot. I mean, there is a lot of talk about the mission that they have and what they're supposed to do. And do you equate that with sort of the you know, the battle between fate and free will, or am I just, you know, am I just way off? Diana, what do you think?
I think that, yeah, sort of. She is trying to assert herself, but I think that's still her self-preservation, because if she's the last warrior nun and there's no more demons coming after her, then she gets to keep the halo and she gets to keep walking around, and the OCS doesn't really have to do that much stuff. Anyway, she has fewer obligations and she can go party again.
Yeah, okay, well, there you go. Father Bryan.
Sorry, what was the question again?
Well,
real quick?
just the fact that, do you see a lot of what's going on in the show being kind of the push
Fate
and
and free
pull
will.
between fate versus free will?
Right. So there's that. The other axis in the show and the narrative is religion and science, which,
Right, yeah.
and sometimes it's just a little heavy-handed and, again, tropish. It's not really that complicated for a lot of people to be able to bridge the two. If you've never heard of Teilhard de Chardin, Google him. Can't recommend him enough. But that's the tension in all storytelling is, am I fated to do this or not? I think part of why they sort of deconstruct the mythos of the halo and maybe it's not really an angel is that because it does have to be about choice. Always. It has to be about the choice that individual makes.
Good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Joy.
I think that your question kind of hops on an earlier topic that we mentioned about all the different plot twists, which don't bother me because I see a lot of areas for spinoffs. You know, in a lot of other universes, there are, you know, like the Buffy spawned the angel and Star Wars spawned everything. And so I think that when you are creating this new story, I think that they are just thinking ahead at all the different kinds of conflicting battles that they can plant in there for future seasons. It can't just be the same kind of story because when you get to the end, then it's the end. You know, like Supernatural, you know, 52,000 seasons, right?
Yes.
You got to make it so in depth that you're like, oh, that was a great season, and XYZ happened. But hey, what about that thing that happened the other season? Where's this character? And so I think that there are a lot of different things, and I don't know that you could separate free will versus fate and science and faith, science and religion. I think those two for me are intertwined, because like you guys said earlier, you know, she was not indoctrinated in religion, or she wasn't learned in religion. Well, I know she was raised forcibly. She was captured in religion, right? So maybe she knew it, but this isn't just about fate or free will. It's also about free will, and now I'm having to accept some combination of is it science or is it religion. I also have not given up the theory that Adriel might be an alien. I mean, this might just be a show about space travelers from different worlds who collided here to try to get this bounty hunter stole their stuff, and they're trying to get it back, you know?
I thought about that.
It's Stargate.
Right?
Oh, I can get behind that. That makes way more sense to me.
Did you remember that movie, 10,000 BC?
Yes.
And yeah, it's awful. But can I say that? I don't know. It was awful. As a history teacher, I was like, don't you ever go watch that movie. Because they were in India. They walked for like a week, and magically they were in Egypt. And on the way, they fought raptors. And then the pyramids were built by aliens. So, you know, I think that scarred me. And so when I watched the last episode, I was like, oh, well, it's going to be an alien.
There you go.
But if I might jump in, Joy, on what you're saying, Carol, I know you've got lots of notes. In that discussion that Adriel and Ava had, at one point, she asked him pointedly if he was an angel. And he basically said that that's something to the effect of that something along those lines or whatever. So that very much does appear to be, if he is some type of being from another planet or some other reality, then, the idea of humans being able to understand him as an angel or almost as a god, that could fit that narrative as well.
I will say, though, that the comics kind of lend itself to, yes, another dimension, but we're not talking about a space portal. It's more like an interdimensional gate to heaven and hell. So I don't know. And I don't know how much I've read some of the old comics and some of the new comics, and, there is definitely some of the same characters and some of the same plot, but I don't know that I could. I tried to read the comics to get the heads up, the 911, the 411, the 911. It's 911.
No, it's 411 for information.
It depends, right? If you need it
Depends
for
on
this
how badly you
panel,
need
An
it.
emergency.
if I needed it for
It's
the
an
panel and I needed to know now, then it's the 911. I was trying to get the 911. I did not get the 411 or the 911 from the comics. But there
Cindy, what
is
about-
a potential portal.
So that thing she was building, probably not a Stargate then.
But they didn't build anything like that. I mean, it was always the demons trying to get over, and crossing, and they didn't need
the
science
machine
for
at
that so
the
much.
lab. That was
Yeah.
basically
Stargate.
an attempt.
That could be.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah.
But also related to that is the child, Michael, I believe.
Mhm.
He talks multiple times to his mother about the angel who visits him, but we never know who
Right.
that is.
Yeah, we don't know who that is. And he talked about Ava opening the door below. So
Yeah,
there are all
and
these.
he knew the portal was powering up or about to open. So I mean,
I assumed it was Azrael, but that's an assumption.
well, that's what I say. No, it could be Adriel. I mean, didn't we in one scene actually see Lilith in that room with him briefly? I think if you're in the finale episode.
Yeah.
Because like you said, Gary, we haven't even started to talk about her and what happened there. So
Yeah.
could that cause some things? So it's funny. I think as Father Bryan said earlier, I can feel, while I enjoyed it, I can feel a little frustrated that there's just so much going and you've pulled the rug out from under me too many times. But if the showrunner truly has like a 4 or 5 season arc, again, right now, our view of this universe could be so small that we really need to see it expanded to either go, well done, or no, you're just throwing, spaghetti against the wall and hoping it sticks.
And that's
Well,
how
I
they
like
cook the pasta
spaghetti.
in Rome. So.
Yeah, I look at it also like so the showrunner, because he did a lot of things, but he was the person who wrote Continuum,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
took a lot of left turns and right turns and all kinds of, like, you just thought you knew where something was going and then it just left that behind. So it could very well be that's his style. I'm not familiar with the other things that he's done, but it could be that that's a style. I do normally, you kind of get a sense about how something's going to go when you start watching it, and this really surprised both my husband and I when we were watching it. We weren't expecting things to go the way they did.
And what an interesting concept to put a halo in the back. And then I got to thinking, there's so many shows that, and why in the back, so many shows depict, well, where is the soul in the human body? And so I feel like that is also an interesting thing. Why is it embedded in the nun? And why a nun? I mean, the comics had warrior priests. I mean, not that I mind. Clearly, I don't mind. But why embedded? And then to call it a halo, it made a lot of sense, mind you. And then it fit in a lot with a lot of the Catholic artwork, and so you could put that in. But I don't know. I thought it was interesting, and it was a new take on it.
So I am ambivalent about whether I want to tell you this. Do you know where halos came from? How halos came about? The imagery of halos?
No, you tell us.
So in both the Jewish and Christian Testaments, talk about crowns, but more pragmatically, and starting probably, I guess, about 3rd or 4th century, when they started making statues. And what happened with these statues of various saints and other biblical characters is that birds would poop on them. And the statue didn't look wholly irreverent with bird crap all over it. So they would carve a thing around the saint's head so it wouldn't get pooped on. And then after a while, that gets embedded from the 3-dimensional to the 2-dimensional.
So it's a poop deflector.
That's right.
It's a poop shield.
Well, I also think that
artistically speaking, that's the origin. Now,
I'm
again,
writing that down.
take it
That's going to be a
further.
cosplay. You watch.
The sign that you've made it.
I think that it's interesting you say, well, but it may or may not be a halo like like you see in the pictures and the religious things, or a poop deflector. But if in the year 1000 whatever during the Crusades, when it appears, that's what the understanding of the people of that time was, what it was, because it kind of glowed and it looked like those other things. So they said, oh, this must be a halo. It's, maybe today's technology, we might have thought it would be something else, but to the people back then, they see somebody magically appear, he has something glowing and it's a round circular thing. Okay.
But it's never near his head. He's whacking
It's always
people with
holding
it,
it.
slicing
I know.
It's a
people.
weapon.
So that's why it
It's a
just
weapon.
is, it is a little, and it's weird. It has carvings on it. We've seen it.
Oh yeah.
It's not just a plain ring. It has stuff on it. So I'm really starting to like Joy's idea. This is a space story. Those are aliens, and that the big guy, the what was his name with the T? He's the cop, or he's the guy who they stole it from. But yeah,
Just want to point out what's behind my head. I have a space
Guns in
poop.
space.
A space poop. Okay, so I have you said, Father, you said it would, and when they were doing it in statues, because I thought that, did you say AD or BC?
Well, in the common era, in terms of like in Christian, like in Italy.
So you said that like the 3rd century common era.
Right.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I remembered this one time at band camp, we talked about, I didn't go to band camp, but we talked about Justinian, and that's the first time I really remember that in a mosaic, which is just a couple hundred years later. So that's interesting, and I shall be cosplaying that now.
There we go.
You just perch a bird on your halo.
Oh yes, there will be.
So the halo, I just, because of what Father Bryan and Joy both said, I just had an idea. What if the halo, it goes in the nuns' backs, because if Adriel did steal the halo and the Tarasques are after him trying to get it back, maybe he took it out of one of their backs. I mean, he butchered one of them and chopped him up and made him into armor. So
which he says he's still connected to.
Yeah,
So he said that when he was
connected
in the
to
tomb,
his armor.
still-
He doesn't say he's connected to that halo, and it's a different color metal,
Mhm.
and it's that reddish sort of
They've got a
glowing
lot to
color, and the
answer.
Tarasques are reddish glowing color on the outside. What if that's how they wear them? And when she's using it, when the power comes up, it looks like wings, sort of. Right? When they have the glow, almost looks like feathery or wing-like behind her.
That's just so you can take flight.
Oh yeah,
After.
yeah.
Into space.
Well, let's turn to something a little bit just as important, but
Less bird
a little
poop
lighter,
halo.
I suppose you could say. And yeah, exactly. And who are some of your favorite characters? And Kevin, we'll start with you.
Oh, I think they did a wonderful job.
Who did you enjoy the most?
Well, I will give a two-part answer in terms of who I enjoy the most, but who I'm looking to learn a lot more about. I really Beatrice is wonderful. I just can't wait to see her kind of take up the mantle
Mhm.
of a lot of what's going on. I think there's a lot there. Obviously, Shotgun Mary is just cool with a name like that. But I really want to, in season 2, I want to learn a lot more about Mother Superior. Okay? Because she alludes to the fact that she
Yes.
had the
yes.
halo. She's got one badass scar. I mean, there's got to be some stories on that. And I'm waiting to get a lot more on that.
It rejected her though, right?
That's what the
Yeah.
story was. But
That's
as
what
we've
she
seen,
says.
that's
Yeah.
what she
Yeah.
says. But
That's
as,
what she said to Ava, but yeah.
yeah. But we learned in this
Down,
show
yeah.
very much, whatever story it be from the written stuff from thousands of years ago, whatever, you know, the narrator ain't always telling the whole truth. So, I mean, I don't think she is yet either. So I think good stuff.
Lindy.
I liked Beatrice. I thought she was the most interesting to me because she seems like this very quiet, demure. She's not looking for attention. She's not doing anything, but is able to take down a room full of guys with barely a weapon. And I mean, she just like, she puts that, I mean,
or
the
she's
picture
got
of,
one, yeah.
yeah, she has like, I think that's her in the, you know, one of the advertisements is the chainmail over the face. That's her, because you saw her do that in one of the scenes where she goes after all those people at the high-tech firm. And I would like to know a lot more about her, like where she came from, what's her story. And that makes her, she's just what I, you know, call quiet strength. She doesn't brag about it. And she's not, doesn't want to be a star. She believes in the team. But I want to learn more about her.
Okay. Father Bryan.
Sorry, me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, Carol blipped out there. So again, one more for Team Beatrice.
Sorry.
Okay. I think what what makes her so appealing is that she is in some ways, compared to this, the most normal. And I don't want to make this too much of a tangent, but it's really easy to make women religious, which is really the proper title for professed sisters. It's really easy to make women religious as silly tropes. They're either stupid, they're naive, or they're just evil. And this show is a little guilty of dabbling in some of those. And it's they're just, and it's not that I find it offensive, but it's just that it's so one-dimensional. It's so easy. It's too easy to write that. And so I think because again, most of the women religious, the sisters that I know, first of all, are tougher than some of these gals, but also really are just beautiful people who dedicate their lives to helping the poor, the disenfranchised, and reaching out. And so just a shout out to all of them. So it's really a beautiful, beautiful way of life. Now, this is useless trivia, but in American parlance, not all sisters are nuns. Nuns are a particular species of a larger genius. So the genius would be women religious, but nuns are cloistered specifically. These are not cloistered.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
If you have a crossbow, you're probably not cloistered, just saying. Or if you are, you just work on your aim. But again, that's because there are some sisters that don't mind being called nuns and some take it a little offensively. But again, it's a beautiful way of life for those who discern it. And I think that's what, for me, Beatrice, for me, could almost be an actual nun. The others just don't quite.
Oh. Gotcha. Okay. Joy.
I love Beatrice, but I feel like I know her story. There's like, I don't want anything to happen to her. When she comes on screen, I'm like, ooh, she's going to kick somebody's butt. But, and so I get excited for that. But for me, the two people I really want to see develop and I want to learn more about their backstory are Lilith and Mary. I mean, Shotgun Mary her name is Shotgun Mary. You know?
For good reason, yes.
She wears everything but the habit. She's not in the habit of wearing the habit. But the church still lets her hang around, and that's interesting to me. Also, I haven't read in the comics what the backstory is on her. So that just intrigues me, her relationship with the Order, and Shannon, and The Order being a different show, but you know what I meant.
Right, right.
And then Lilith is, I was done with her until she came back from,
Right.
space or wherever she was. And she's been through something. Something has happened, and I think she's a more complex character as well. She's very driven. But what I do appreciate about the show in general is that all of the characters are very multidimensional. And they do, I agree, kind of they start to fall into those, very rigid categories of characters. But even with Ava, I expected for her to take, 3 maybe episodes to decide that she's going to do this. And I felt like the trailer also reflected that, but she didn't. So, I mean, she's still conflicted about this very huge decision. And I think that's right. I mean, if any of
Right.
us were put into any kind of situation as serious as this, it would not be, a 10 episode beginning to end. We wouldn't make
Right.
a decision and move on.
And
So
as Kevin said, yeah, she was dead. But yeah.
right? I think that Lilith and Mary for me are the people whose stories I'm really looking forward to going more in depth, and I appreciate also the diversity of the show.
Yeah, that is a good point. Yeah.
And using international actors, and I think they did a good job with that.
And Diana, what about you?
Okay, so there's one character in Warrior Nun who I took one look at that character and I said, this is a walking trope. And almost the entire storyline of that character, it proved me right in almost every episode until the last one. And I want to see where they go from here. And that is Cardinal Doretti, now Pope.
Oh yeah.
I am so interested in him now. That was a good twist. Like all these twists that feel like we're kind of blowing in the wind here, but that was the one that I think was the most compelling. The fact that this walking trope, power hungry character who just wants to be the Pope and is using and abusing everyone and everything he touches, and is like just this negative trope of a man in a religious way of life. I just feel like, okay, this guy is just this, I'm supposed to hate him. I'm gonna judge him. I'm gonna think he sucks. And he doesn't. And what really compelled me at the end was the look on his face when he saw what was going on in the courtyard. Mm-hmm. He was genuinely concerned. It bothered him. He wasn't like looking at it like, oh, well, at least I'm the Pope. It wasn't one of those. It was, oh, those people down there, stuff's happening to them. Like he was afraid for them. He looked, for a minute, I was like, he's not going to jump off of there. He doesn't have those skills. I hope he doesn't try to do that. And I really want to see what they do with him in the second season.
Wouldn't it be cool though if he did? Like he jumped up on the rail,
he jumped down,
pulled
and all of
out
a sudden
some
he's
nunchucks,
parkour Pope. Yeah,
right?
that would be cool.
And then just that would be awesome.
Oh, we didn't do it yet. So maybe for our last question, we ought to give what's your quick theory, and we'll start with Kevin. What's your quick theory on what happened to Lilith? Where did she go? I mean, we now know it was one of 3 places. She probably either went to hell, or she went to another dimension, or she went to space. But I'm guessing that the third option is not. I'm more on board with one of the first 2. But Kevin, what do you think? What do you think happened to her? And how did she get back?
When she came back and she's helping Ava. Right. Now, I can see plot stuff that says that was along the Adriel line where she's helping Ava get in there to get him out. So it could be she went to hell, they sent her back, took away her memories. You need to play your part in helping us get Adriel out. Or I can also see her having gone to potentially heaven and sent back to say, no, Ava needs your help in this battle. Because we've only seen the start of the big boss fight, right? It's Shotgun Mary at the bottom of the thing. We don't know what we don't know what she
Uh,
might still be able to do. So I think to their credit, they've done a great job where I haven't a clue where it was, because it all ties into where little Michael went and where these Tarasques are coming from. So I don't have a clue. I don't.
Father Bryan, what about you?
Again, whatever theory whatever they show you the first episode is going to change in the second and probably change again in the third. But I think there's definitely something towards Stargate territory, but I don't think it's going to be that simple. I think it's going to be, again, different realms of existence. I don't think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be as cut and dry as other planets. I think that would be a bit of a letdown, honestly, because I think everybody watching would say,
Yeah.
this is Stargate, but what if Faith from Buffy had, become the Slayer? So again, time will tell. We'll see.
Lindy.
I it's so hard to figure out what's going on with her. I don't think she's alone in that body anymore. That's one thing that, and I don't know if it's something good or something bad, but I think there's two consciousness in there. There's hers and whatever else happened. I was more inclined as the story continued, I was more inclined to not believe that those Tarasques were evil necessarily. And I'm wondering if they kind of killed her by accident. It wasn't really what their intention was when they were in that cargo area. I don't, and she just got in the way of something, and so they tried to fix her as best they could and send her back so she can keep on doing whatever it was that they wanted to happen. And again, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I don't think she's alone in there anymore. And it's unclear to me what's going on. She appears to be good now, but everything, like we're all saying here, everything is really suspect at this point. We don't know what's going and, which way is up.
Yeah, that scene in the bathroom where she peels the skin back and you see the glowing fire inside. Diana, what about you?
I think Lilith was chosen. I think that the Tarasque took her on purpose. I think it wanted the halo back, but then since Lilith was going to get in the way, all right, I'm gonna take her. I can't get the halo. I'll take this one. Lilith, her name implies another, like Divinium, implies more of our expectations, or for us to think she isn't what she seems. She is from a family that has sent girls to the order for centuries, and every single one of them has been a halo bearer except for Lilith. And the fact that Lilith didn't get the halo, maybe that lined something up for the Tarasques, and they said, oh good, finally we can get one of these.
We get to take one.
Yeah, and I think her phasing ability that she has, her teleportation ability that she has, they are similar to some of the halo stuff. She heals, but her body is transforming. So whatever it is that has happened to her, her hair color is lightening. It's changing color and becoming lighter through every subsequent episode since she comes back. First, it's just a streak. It's a few strands. Then it's a bigger streak. And then by that last episode, her hair is going kind of this silvery color.
Yeah, it's white. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she's got those claws that are cutting metal. They're cutting first they're cutting wall, then they're cutting metal, then they're cutting stone. Like she's using that drill, and I'm like, oh, don't break the drill, Lilith. We're in trouble if you do that. But she's another character that I wonder where they're gonna go with her. But I think she may have been chosen just as much as Ava was. She wanted the halo so badly. She was willing to kill Ava to get it, but maybe she'd been chosen for something else that she wasn't aware of or didn't know, or maybe now she doesn't want, because she's kind of the opposite of Ava. Ava gets this thing she knows nothing about, and she doesn't want it. Lilith wanted it the whole time, and then Lilith is now in the same position as Ava at the beginning of the series. So she's had almost exactly the same scenario with
Something
different
happened
means.
to her, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And she even says that something's wrong with me. I don't know what's
Mhm.
wrong with me. All right, Joy, what's your theory?
Okay, I've got so much. I took notes. Okay, ready? Here we go.
Uh,
So first, I think good and bad are too binary. I mean, I don't think any. Okay, let me rephrase that. I don't think many people are at those polar opposites. I think everybody is doing something with an intention that they believe to be the best intention. But if you think about the name Lilith, which isn't an accident, I mean, Lilith is always portrayed as a demon or an evil figure. And in fact, in the comics, both the original comics written by Ben Dunn and then the new comics, Lilith does appear. Lilith is always a demon, but she's a good demon. And always, both times in the comics, allied herself with the warrior nun in order to defeat Lucifer or some other evil. So I think that might be, some of the things you see are similar. So that might be a little telling for us, that maybe she's a good bad guy, you know,
good bad guy, yeah.
a good bad guy.
That way she can fit into either category, right, Father Bryan?
There you go. But also, I think that I don't think it's outside of the realm to think regarding the halo and the divinium that is keeping the young boy alive. It's healing him. It's healing his body. She was gutted by the Tarask. So I don't think it's outside the realm to think that wherever she went, she was kind of embedded with the divinium, and it is healing her as well. But then something else occurred to me. Aurelia, right, the first warrior nun, was, by the Adriel's account, was dead, right? And the people asked him
Right,
to
yeah.
save her. Am I right? Right. So he put the halo in a dead body, which is the same thing that happened to Ava.
To Ava,
And
yeah.
so they are both zombies.
I drop.
I've solved it. There you go.
Well, I will say that now this panel will be, you know, the video is kind of, it's a sense of permanence, and we will have to come back later and find out how many of our theories were actually true or not. So I will make sure and let you guys know, you know, when it's on YouTube, you'll see. You can always go back and say, now who said that? Who was the person who said it this time?
Zombies.
But you guys, this has been zombies. Well, that's what the people looked like at the end. You know,
Right?
we're all piling on top of Mary. Yeah. But thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. I hope that our viewers are going to enjoy it. We would have loved having this discussion at Con, and now that we know there's a season 2 of the show that will come whenever.
All right.
In person at DragonCon. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that as well. But I want to thank all of you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I hope you had a good time, and I'll give you a hand because I can't do it in person, but I'm doing it right here. And thank you guys so much, and thanks to our viewers as well. And I will see all of you again at some point soon. Thank you, everyone, very
Always a
much.
pleasure.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks, guys.
you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Carol. Bye.
Thank
Have
you
fun.
all.